I'm Rebecca Hart, 32 years old, an emergency room nurse and a single mom. 4 weeks ago, at my sister's wedding reception, surrounded by 200 guests in their finest attire, she took the microphone and announced to everyone, "My sister Rebecca is a single mother." Nobody wanted her. The crowd erupted in laughter. My mother's voice cut through from her seat at the front. "She's damaged merchandise." My father tried to hide his grin behind his champagne glass. My 6-year-old son, Lucas, sat right next to me, his tiny fingers squeezing mine so tight, his eyes filling with tears as he watched 200 people laugh at his mama. But there was one man who didn't laugh. And what he did in the next 5 minutes turned everything upside down. Before I continue, I need you to do something for me. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. I promise you, this story needs to be heard. To understand how I ended up in that nightmare, I need to take you back to where it all began. Growing up in our 5-bedroom house in Westchester County, New York, I figured out pretty fast that there were 2 kinds of daughters in the Hart family: the star and the shadow. My sister Natalie was the star. 3.5 years younger than me, with platinum blonde hair like our mother's and this magnetic personality that made everyone gravitate toward her. From the time she took her first steps, she was Daddy's precious angel and Mommy's perfect little reflection. Me? I was the dependable one, which in Hart family language meant I didn't need attention because I could take care of myself. When it was time for junior prom, Natalie got a $600 designer gown, soft lavender with intricate beading that sparkled under every light, the kind that made heads turn when she entered any room. My prom 2 years before that? My mother glanced at me over her coffee cup and said, "Rebecca, honey, you don't need anything fancy. Simple works better on you." I wore a dress from the clearance section at Nordstrom Rack. $48. I can still see that red sticker price because I'd worked 3 weekends babysitting the neighbor's twins just to afford it. Even our bedrooms painted the picture perfectly. Natalie had the master suite on the 2nd floor with French doors opening onto a terrace, everything white and gold, string lights draped across her ceiling like she was living in some teenage dream. My room was tucked away at the far end of the hallway, right next to the linen closet, filled with furniture passed down from our deceased grandmother's estate, pieces nobody else wanted. I didn't hate Natalie for it, really I didn't. She was just a kid living in a world our parents created for her. But late at night, staring at my cracked ceiling, I'd wonder what I'd done to deserve being invisible. What was so wrong with me that my own mom and dad looked straight through me like I was made of glass? I didn't realize back then that this pattern, this constant overlooking, would chase me all the way to her wedding day and destroy me in front of everyone I'd ever known. I met Ryan when I was 25, during my 3rd year working in the at Mount Sinai. He was a medical equipment sales representative. Smooth-talking, confident, the type of guy who could make you feel like you were the only woman on earth when he looked at you. We got married 11 months later. My parents showed up to the ceremony but spent the entire reception going on and on to anyone who'd listen about Natalie's upcoming position at a major marketing agency in Boston. "She's destined for greatness," my mother kept saying to the guests, her voice carrying across the room. "Both of my girls are doing fine, but Natalie, oh, she's truly exceptional." At my own wedding, those words. The marriage fell apart faster than I could have imagined. Ryan had this talent for making me feel worthless, always questioning my decisions, picking apart how I looked, slowly cutting me off from my friends. By the time I found out he was having an affair with his district manager, I was 8 months pregnant and had lost almost every piece of who I used to be. The divorce papers were signed when Lucas was 15 months old. There I was, 28 years old, completely alone, pulling night shifts while my baby boy stayed at an hourly daycare that smelled like old carpet and microwaved meals. My mother's reaction when I told her about the divorce? A long, dramatic sigh followed by, "Rebecca, I always worried you didn't know how to make a man happy. Natalie would never allow something like this to happen to her." My father? He said absolutely nothing. He never did. Natalie sent me one text message during that whole nightmare period. "That's rough, but honestly, Becca, you always choose the wrong guys. Maybe get some therapy or something. No offer of support. No asking how Lucas was doing. No recognition that I was barely surviving. I didn't want their sympathy, I swear I didn't. I told myself that every single night while I heated up ramen noodles after working 12 hours straight, Lucas fast asleep in his crib in our cramped studio apartment. I just needed them to stop acting like my suffering was some kind of twisted entertainment for them. Cameron Mitchell walked into our lives 2 years before the wedding happened. Natalie met him at some fancy charity auction, one of those black tie events raising money for underprivileged youth programs. He was a family law attorney, the kind who took cases for free for families drowning in legal fees they couldn't pay. Good-looking in this understated way, with warm brown eyes and this habit of really listening when you spoke to him, like your words actually mattered. The first time I met Cameron was at a family dinner at my parents' estate. Natalie had been seeing him for 4 months and wanted to parade him around. He shook my hand firmly, noticed Lucas peeking out from behind my legs, and immediately dropped down to my son's eye level. "Hey, there, buddy, I really like your superhero shirt. Is that Spider-Man?" Lucas's whole face had lit up like the sun. Nobody in my family ever acknowledged him like that, with genuine interest and kindness. During dinner, I kept catching Cameron studying our family dynamics with these sharp, observant eyes, the way a lawyer sizes up a courtroom. The way my mother steered every single conversation back to Natalie's accomplishments. The way my father chuckled at Natalie's stories but barely glanced my way when I spoke. The way I automatically stood up and started clearing plates while Natalie sat there scrolling through her phone without a care in the world. Later that evening, as I was packing up my car to leave, Cameron appeared next to me in the driveway. "Does your family treat you like this all the time?" he asked, his voice low and serious. I almost dropped Lucas's diaper bag right there on the pavement. "Like what?" I managed to say. "Like you don't exist." I forced out a laugh that sounded hollow even to my own ears. "That's just how we are, I guess. Natalie's the golden child. I'm just the extra." He didn't laugh back, just nodded slowly with this look in his eyes I couldn't quite understand. "You're an incredible mother," he said quietly. "Lucas is really lucky to have you." Then he turned and walked back into the house. I didn't understand why those simple words made my throat tighten and my eyes burn with tears, or why for months afterward I kept replaying that 30-second conversation over and over in my head at night. What happens next will shock you. Cameron saw something that night that would change everything. Stay with me, because part 2 reveals the wedding invitation that came with impossible demands and cruel conditions I never saw coming. The wedding invitation arrived in this heavy cream-colored envelope with silver embossing so thick and luxurious it felt less like an invitation and more like a royal decree. "Natalie Rose Hart and Cameron Mitchell request the honor of your presence." The venue was the Plaza, a 6-star hotel in downtown Manhattan with a grand ballroom that had hosted governors, A-list celebrities, and even a Middle Eastern princess once. 200 guests invited. The budget? Somewhere around $200,000, every penny funded by my parents. Just to put that in perspective, when I got married 7 years ago, my parents gave me $3,000 and complained about it for an entire year. The invitation came with strings attached, heavy ones. Natalie called me 3 weeks before the big day. Her voice had this edge to it I'd learned to recognize over the years. "Rebecca, we need to go over a few things about the wedding." "Sure, what's going on?" "First of all, please wear something really plain. Beige or light gray, nothing bold. I can't have anyone taking attention away from me on my day." I'd already bought this beautiful emerald green dress that I'd been saving up for. "Okay," I said, swallowing my disappointment. "I can do that." Second thing, she paused for dramatic effect. "Do you absolutely have to bring Lucas? He's 6 years old. He'll probably throw a tantrum and disrupt everything." "Natalie, I don't have anyone to babysit him. Ryan's not involved at all. And plus, fine, she interrupted me sharply. "But you need to keep him silent, and you'll be seated at a table way in the back so you can take him out fast if he starts acting up." The morning of the wedding, my mother called me at 7 a.m. "Rebecca, I've coordinated with the event planner. You and the child are assigned to table 26 near the service entrance. Don't complain about it. This is Natalie's special day and we absolutely cannot have any interruptions. Interruptions. That's what my 6-year-old son represented to them, an inconvenience. Looking back now, I should have recognized it then, the careful planning, the strategic placement, the deliberate setup for what was coming. But I didn't see it. I just wanted to get through the day without incident. The plaza's grand ballroom was absolutely stunning, I have to admit. Towering ceilings covered in crystal chandeliers that must have cost a fortune, white orchids everywhere you looked, cascading down from tall centerpieces. A chamber orchestra playing Pachelbel in one corner. The kind of wedding you see on Instagram and think nobody actually has in real life. I wore a light gray dress I'd grabbed from a clearance sale the week before. Plain, forgettable, exactly what Natalie demanded. Lucas looked adorable in his little charcoal vest and matching pants, his hair slicked back neatly, gripping my hand as we walked into all that overwhelming elegance. "Mama, this place is like a castle," he whispered, his eyes huge and amazed. "It really is, sweetheart. Come on, let's go find where we're sitting." Table 26 was precisely where my mother had warned me it would be, shoved into the furthest corner, partially blocked by a massive pillar, so close to the kitchen that I could hear servers yelling about appetizer counts and wine refills. The other people at our table were distant relatives I maybe remembered meeting once at a funeral 5 years ago. Nobody from my immediate family stopped by to say hello or check on us. I watched my parents make their grand entrance into the ballroom. My mother wearing this champagne-colored Oscar de la Renta gown, my father in a custom-tailored Tom Ford tuxedo. They moved through the crowd like royalty, embracing people, laughing, soaking up compliments about their gorgeous daughter. Singular. Just one daughter in their world. Natalie made her entrance 40 minutes late, which I guess was planned for maximum impact. She wore a Nina Tornai wedding dress that probably cost more than I make in 6 months. She was glowing, radiant, every bit the princess she'd been groomed to be since birth. Her eyes scanned the ballroom and landed on me tucked away in my corner. She smiled, but it wasn't warm or loving. It was the smile of someone who's already won the game and wants to make sure you know it. On her way to the head table where Cameron was waiting, she made a detour to our table. "Rebecca, you actually made it," she said, her tone dripping with fake surprise. "Of course I came. You're my sister," I said quietly. She glanced down at Lucas, then back at me with cold eyes. "Just don't forget what I told you about keeping him under control." Then she floated away, surrounded by bridesmaids and well-wishers. I caught a glimpse of my mother's phone lying on a nearby cocktail table. The screen lit up with a text notification. "Don't forget the plan tonight." My stomach twisted into a knot, but I pushed the feeling away. "It's nothing," I told myself. The ceremony itself was gorgeous. Natalie cried these perfect, delicate tears as she said her vows to Cameron, my parents beaming with pride from the front row like they were watching their only child get married. The guests all had tissues pressed to their eyes, dabbing away tears of joy. I sat way in the back with Lucas on my lap, and honestly, I felt nothing but emptiness. During the cocktail hour afterward, the photographer started gathering family members for formal portraits. I stood up, smoothing down my plain gray dress, preparing to join them when my mother appeared with this tight, forced smile plastered on her face. "Just immediate family for these shots, Rebecca. Parents of the bride." "But I'm her sister," I said, confused. "We're doing a more intimate grouping first. Surely you understand." I understood perfectly. I always understood their message loud and clear. Lucas tugged on my sleeve, his little voice full of confusion. "Mama, how come we can't be in the family picture?" "We'll take our own special pictures, baby," I said, pulling out my phone with shaking hands. "Smile big for Mama." I snapped a photo of him standing there in his little vest, trying so hard to ignore the burning sensation building behind my eyes. At the reception, I sat at our isolated table and watched as aunts, uncles, and cousins I'd grown up with walked right past me to congratulate Natalie and Cameron at the head table. Not a single one stopped to acknowledge me or Lucas. "Rebecca, oh my goodness, is that you?" It was Aunt Sarah, my mother's older sister, pausing on her way to the bar. She looked genuinely uncomfortable. I almost missed you back here in this corner. The seating arrangement is certainly interesting, I said, trying to keep my voice light and casual. She glanced toward the head table where my mother was holding court, then looked back at me with something like pity mixed with guilt crossing her face. Patricia has always played favorites, honey. I'm truly sorry. Before I could even respond, she hurried away like she was afraid my mother would see her talking to me. I noticed Cameron's college roommate, Josh, setting up his phone on a small tripod near the edge of the dance floor, the camera pointed toward the stage area. Probably live streaming for family members on the West Coast who couldn't make it, I thought. I had absolutely no idea that phone would become the most crucial witness to what was about to destroy my life. The sound of forks clinking against crystal glasses echoed through the ballroom, silencing all 200 guests. The MC, this polished guy in an expensive three-piece suit, stepped up to the microphone on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the bride has prepared some words she'd like to share. Applause rolled through the room like thunder as Natalie rose gracefully from her seat, absolutely glowing in the spotlight from a dozen chandeliers above. She accepted the microphone with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Thank you all so very much for being here tonight, she began, her voice smooth as honey. This is without question the happiest day of my entire life, and having all of you here to celebrate with us means absolutely everything. She gazed at Cameron with adoration that looked perfect, practiced. First, I need to thank my amazing parents. Mom, Dad, you have given me every opportunity, all your love and support, your unwavering belief in me. I am the woman I am today solely because of you. My mother pressed both hands over her heart, tears already streaming down her face. My father nodded with unmistakable pride. And I want to talk for a moment about family, Natalie continued, her tone shifting just slightly in a way that made my skin prickle. About what family truly means to me. About the lessons I've learned from watching the people around me my whole life. Her eyes swept across the ballroom and locked directly onto me. The warmth drained completely from her expression. Especially from my big sister. Lucas sat up straighter beside me, his face brightening. Mama, Aunt Natalie is talking about you. I know, baby, I whispered. Shh. But something about the way Natalie was looking at me made ice water run through my veins. Rebecca, could you please stand up? Natalie called out, her amplified voice bouncing off the vaulted ceilings. I want everyone here to get a good look at you. 200 faces swiveled toward our corner table in perfect unison. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but somehow I forced myself to stand. Lucas stared up at me, his face clouded with confusion. There she is, Natalie said, her smile widening into something that wasn't quite human. My older sister, Rebecca, the one who has taught me so many valuable life lessons over the years. You see, my sister is a single mother. The words hung in the air like poison. A few guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Natalie's smile never faltered for a second. She got married way too young, had a baby, and then, well, things completely fell apart. Her husband walked out on her. Couldn't handle the responsibility, I suppose. And now she's all alone. Scattered nervous laughter rippled through the crowd like a disease spreading. I felt my face burning red hot with humiliation. My sister is unwanted, Natalie continued, her voice dripping with theatrical pity. No man wants to be with her now. I mean, who could really blame them? She comes with baggage. A kid, crushing debt, all of that mess. More laughter, louder this time, bolder. Some of Natalie's sorority sisters at a table near the front were giggling into their champagne glasses. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stand there. Then from the head table, my mother's voice rang out crystal clear for everyone to hear. She's damaged merchandise. The entire ballroom exploded with laughter. 200 people laughing at me. My mother was laughing, covering her mouth with her napkin. My father had his hand over his face, his shoulders shaking. I looked down at Lucas and my heart shattered into a million pieces. His little face was crumpling, his eyes darting frantically between me and all the laughing faces surrounding us. "Mama," his voice came out so tiny and scared it broke me. "Why is everybody laughing at you?" I couldn't answer him. My throat had completely closed up. I saw papers in Natalie's hand, printed notes, typed up, rehearsed. This wasn't a spontaneous moment of humor. This was planned, carefully scripted, a coordinated attack disguised as a wedding toast. "But you know what?" Natalie said, riding the wave of cruel laughter washing over the room. "Rebecca taught me the most valuable lesson of all. She showed me exactly what not to do with my life. So really, I should be thanking her." She raised her champagne glass high in my direction, the crystal catching the light. "To Rebecca, everyone, my personal cautionary tale." Every guest in that ballroom raised their glasses toward me. Some were still laughing. Others looked deeply uncomfortable but stayed silent anyway. And my 6-year-old son watched his mama being destroyed for entertainment. But Natalie wasn't done. Not even close. And what happened next? Cameron stood up. And what he did shocked every single person in that room, including me. Don't go anywhere, because part 3 will show you how one man's courage changed absolutely everything. You know, growing up, everyone always wondered why Rebecca and I turned out so differently, Natalie was saying, pacing across the stage like she was performing a one-woman show. Same parents, same house, same privileges growing up. But somehow Natalie succeeded and Rebecca, well, she gestured vaguely in my direction with a dismissive wave of her hand. I used to feel guilty about it, honestly. Poor Rebecca, always struggling with everything. Poor Rebecca, can't even keep a husband interested. Poor Rebecca, stuck in that depressing little apartment with her depressing little existence. My mother was nodding along enthusiastically, dabbing delicately at her eyes, but those weren't tears of sympathy. Those were tears from laughing so hard. But then I had this realization, Natalie continued, spreading her arms wide like she was revealing some profound truth. Some people are just meant to serve as warnings, not as examples to follow. And my dear sister, she really is the absolute best warning I could have ever asked for. Applause. Actual enthusiastic applause from 200 people. I felt Lucas's small hand tighten desperately around mine. His entire body was trembling like a leaf. "Mama, I want to leave right now," he whispered, and I could hear his voice starting to crack with tears. "I know, baby, I know," I managed to whisper back. But my legs absolutely refused to move. I was frozen there, pinned down under the crushing weight of 200 judging stares, my mother's delighted laughter, my father's shameful silence. This was it, I thought. This was rock bottom. The lowest point of my entire life. I was completely wrong. Natalie lifted her glass again, her smile blazing with triumph. "Honestly, Mom is absolutely right about this. Rebecca is damaged merchandise, used goods. But hey," she shrugged with exaggerated innocence. "At least she's here tonight to witness how a real success story ends, right?" The laughter in that ballroom swelled to a deafening roar and then suddenly, abruptly, movement from the head table cut through it all. Cameron pushed his chair back so hard it scraped loudly against the floor. His jaw was clenched tight. His eyes were locked on Lucas's small shaking form pressed against my side, and the look on Cameron's face was pure fury barely contained. For a split second, I genuinely thought he was walking out, abandoning his own wedding right there in front of everyone. Instead, he walked with deliberate purpose directly toward the stage. Toward Natalie. Toward that microphone. The laughter stuttered, then died completely. An eerie silence fell over the ballroom like a heavy blanket. "Cameron, baby, what are you doing?" Natalie's confident smile flickered with the first hint of uncertainty. He didn't answer her. Didn't even glance her way. His eyes remained fixed on our table, on my son. On Lucas, who had buried his face against my hip, his tiny shoulders shaking with sobs he was trying desperately to hold in. Cameron saw that, really saw it, and something in his entire expression hardened into absolute steel. He reached the stage in maybe 6 long strides. Natalie was still clutching the microphone, her smile frozen on her face in confusion and growing alarm. "Daniel, sit down," she hissed. "I'm not finished with my speech yet, I need to." He took the microphone from her hand. Not aggressively, not violently, just calmly and firmly removed it from her grip like he was confiscating something dangerous from a child who didn't understand what they were holding. "Cameron," Natalie's voice pitched high with panic. "What are you doing right now?" The entire ballroom had gone so silent you could hear people breathing. 200 guests were literally holding their breath, waiting. I saw my mother half-rise from her seat, her face cycling rapidly through confusion, then anger, then something that looked like fear. Cameron raised the microphone to his lips. "I apologize for this interruption," he said, and his voice was perfectly steady, perfectly clear, cutting through the silence like a blade. "But there's something I need to say, and it can't wait another second." He turned to look directly at me. Not through me the way my family always did, not past me, but straight into my eyes like I was a real person who mattered. Then he turned back to face the crowd of stunned guests. "I have spent 2 years, 2 entire years, watching how this family treats Rebecca Hart," he said. 2 years of family dinners where she's completely ignored like she doesn't exist. 2 years of holiday celebrations where she's deliberately excluded from photos and conversations. 2 years of watching her be treated as less than nothing by the very people who are supposed to love her unconditionally. Natalie grabbed desperately at his arm. "Cameron, stop this right now. You're embarrassing me in front of everyone." He stepped smoothly away from her touch, putting physical distance between them. "No, Natalie. You did that to yourself tonight." Cameron's voice carried across the silent ballroom with the authority of someone delivering a closing argument in court. "I'm a family law attorney. I have dedicated my entire career to protecting children from family trauma, from toxic environments that damage them, from adults who should absolutely know better than to inflict harm." He pointed directly toward our corner table, toward Lucas still pressed against my leg, still shaking. "That little boy right there is 6 years old. 6. And you just forced him to sit here and watch 200 adults laugh at his mother. You called her unwanted. You called her damaged merchandise. You called her used goods." His voice cracked with barely restrained rage. "In front of her child. Her 6-year-old child who loves her more than anything in this world." The silence was so complete, so absolute, you could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. My mother's face had drained of all color. My father was staring intensely at his plate like he could disappear into it. "I have spent my entire professional life fighting against exactly this kind of cruelty," Cameron continued, and his voice was shaking now with emotion. "And I will not, I absolutely cannot and will not, become part of a family that inflicts it deliberately. For entertainment. For laughs." He turned to face Natalie directly. She was frozen in place, her flawless makeup suddenly looking garish and fake under the harsh spotlights, her carefully constructed perfect image crumbling in real time right in front of 200 witnesses. "Cameron, please," she whispered, and the microphone caught every desperate word. "You're completely overreacting. It was just a harmless joke between sisters. We always do this kind of thing." "A joke?" His laugh was hollow and bitter. "You planned this, Natalie. You rehearsed these lines. You turned your own sister's deepest pain into entertainment for a crowd. You humiliated her deliberately in front of her child, your nephew, who you're supposed to care about." He stepped back from her, creating a visible, undeniable chasm between them on that stage. "I cannot marry you, Natalie. I won't do it." The collective gasp from 200 guests was like a physical force in the room. "And one more thing," Cameron said, and his eyes found Josh's phone still recording on its tripod near the dance floor. "My friend Josh has been live streaming this entire reception for family members in Seattle who couldn't fly out here tonight. About 60 people have just witnessed exactly what kind of family I almost married into. What kind of cruelty you're all capable of." He set the microphone down on the stage with a soft but final-sounding thud. "I sincerely apologize for the disruption to your evening," he said to the stunned, silent guests filling the ballroom. "The open bar is still available. Please feel free to enjoy the rest of your night. Then he walked off that stage without looking back. The dam broke immediately. Rebecca. My mother was on her feet, her Oscar de la Renta gown swirling around her ankles as she stormed toward our corner table like a woman possessed. Her face was twisted with absolute fury, and it was all directed at me. Not at Natalie. Not at herself. At me. What did you do? She hissed, jabbing one perfectly manicured finger directly into my face. What did you say to Cameron behind our backs? You deliberately ruined your sister's wedding day. Mom, I didn't say anything to him, I tried to explain. You have always been insanely jealous of her. My mother's voice rose to a shriek that cut through the shocked murmurs beginning to spread through the crowd like wildfire. You couldn't stand seeing her happy for once in your life, could you? You had to poison Cameron against her somehow. Natalie had collapsed into her chair at the head table, black mascara streaming down her cheeks in dark rivers. Her carefully orchestrated moment of triumph had exploded into a very public, very humiliating nightmare that would follow her forever. My father appeared at my mother's elbow, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. What did you tell him, Rebecca? He demanded. What lies did you feed Cameron when nobody was watching? I didn't tell him anything, I said, my voice shaking. I barely even spoke to him over these 2 years. Liar. Natalie's voice cut across the ballroom like a whip. She was standing now, her Nina Tornai gown seeming to mock the absolute disaster unfolding around her. You've been working to turn him against me since the very first day you met him. You couldn't let me have one thing, could you? One perfect day? I felt the narrative shifting right there in real time, transforming before my eyes. The guests who had been laughing at me just minutes ago were now looking at me with something different. Not sympathy. Suspicion. She must have done something behind the scenes. Maybe the sister really did provoke all this somehow. That poor Natalie, having her special day destroyed. I could see it happening, the rewriting of history right in front of 200 witnesses. In a matter of minutes, I had somehow transformed from victim to villain in the minds of everyone there watching us. And I realized with perfect clarity that if I didn't leave immediately, right now, this would become my permanent legacy in the family. The bitter, jealous sister who destroyed her siblings' wedding out of spite. Forever the villain of this story. You know what I did next? What I said that finally set me free after 32 years of silence. Stay with me because part 4 reveals how I finally found my voice and walked away from everything. I looked down at Lucas. His sweet little face was red and blotchy from crying so hard. His small hands were balled into tight fists against his chest, pressed there like he was trying to hold his breaking heart together. He was trying with everything he had to be brave, to understand why the entire world had suddenly become so loud and angry and terrifying. And in that single moment, staring at my son's face, something fundamental shifted deep inside me. For 32 years, I had been the daughter who stayed quiet no matter what. The one who kept the peace at any cost. The one who absorbed every slight, every cruel insult, every moment of being completely overlooked and dismissed. Because fighting back, standing up for myself, it just wasn't worth causing drama. That's what I'd always told myself. But this wasn't about me anymore, was it? This was about my son watching his mother be absolutely torn apart in public and me doing nothing to protect us. Nothing to show him that we mattered. I stood up. Not dramatically, not defiantly, just stood. I smoothed down my plain gray dress with trembling hands and lifted Lucas into my arms where he belonged. I didn't say anything to Daniel, I said, and my voice came out calm and clear and strong in a way it never had before. Not once in 2 years. I didn't need to say a single word. He has working eyes. He spent 2 years watching you treat me like I'm garbage, like I'm nothing, and tonight he finally decided he couldn't live with being part of this family. That's the truth. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You're lying to save face, Natalie spat at me, her voice shrill and desperate. You've been jealous of me since we were children, Rebecca. You absolutely cannot stand that I'm better than you in every way. I didn't argue with her. Didn't try to defend myself or explain. What would have been the point? These people couldn't hear me even if I screamed. Instead, I turned my back on all of them and started walking toward the exit with my son in my arms. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice rising in shrill desperation. Rebecca. Rebecca, you come back here this instant and apologize to your sister for ruining her wedding. I didn't turn around. Didn't pause for even a second. Lucas wrapped his little arms around my neck, his wet cheek pressed against mine. Mama, he whispered close to my ear. Are we going home now? Yes, baby, I said, and kissed his forehead. Yes, we are. Good, he said after a pause. I don't like it here. The people are mean. I know, sweetheart, I whispered back. Neither do I. Not anymore. The walk from table 26 to the ballroom exit doors was probably about 50 feet. It felt like walking 50 miles. I kept my back absolutely straight, my steps measured and steady. Lucas clung to me, his face hidden against my shoulder, trying to disappear. Around us, 200 guests sat in stunned silence, watching this drama unfold like it was live theater they hadn't bought tickets for but couldn't look away from. I saw Cameron standing near the doorway. He wasn't fleeing the disaster. He was waiting there. When I reached him, he stepped forward, blocking my path just long enough to speak directly to me. Rebecca, his voice was quiet, meant only for my ears. I am so deeply sorry. I should have said something years ago. I should have stood up for you long before tonight. I should have, please don't apologize, I interrupted gently, shifting Lucas on my hip. You just saved my son from watching his mother be humiliated without a single person caring enough to stop it. That's more than anyone in my own blood family has ever done for either of us. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a simple business card. Clean white cardstock with professional black lettering. Cameron Mitchell, attorney at law. Family and children's rights. If you ever need anything at all, he said seriously. Legal help, a reference for a job, someone to vouch for you, anything. Call me. Pro bono, I mean that sincerely. I took the card carefully and tucked it into my purse. Thank you, I said softly. Thank you for seeing Lucas. For seeing us. Behind us, I could hear Natalie's voice rising in hysterics, my mother trying desperately to calm her down, my father issuing terse commands to the bewildered wedding coordinator about what to do next. I didn't look back at any of it. I pushed through those ornate ballroom doors into the hotel corridor, my heels clicking on the polished marble floor, each step taking us further from that nightmare. Lucas lifted his head as the noise of chaos faded behind us. Mama, are you sad? He asked, studying my face carefully. I thought about his question. Really, truly thought about my answer. No, baby, I said, and realized with shock that I wasn't lying. For the first time in a very, very long time, I'm not sad at all. Really? His eyes brightened just a little. Really truly. How about we go home and make pancakes? With chocolate chips? His face lit up completely. With all the chocolate chips you want, baby. All of them. By the time I got Lucas bathed, fed his pancakes, and tucked into bed with his favorite stuffed dinosaur, my phone had blown up completely. 49 missed calls. 33 from my mother. 14 from Natalie. 2 from my father. I scrolled through the text messages while sitting on the edge of my bed, still wearing that gray dress, still wearing the makeup I'd so carefully applied that morning, hoping to just get through the day unnoticed. Mom, 11:03 p.m. You have ruined absolutely everything. Call me immediately. Mom, 11:17 p.m. Natalie is completely hysterical. Cameron left the hotel. This is entirely your fault. Mom, 11:42 p.m. Do not you dare ignore me right now, Rebecca Elizabeth Hart. Natalie, 11:55 p.m. I will never, ever forgive you for this. Never. You destroyed my entire life. Dad, 12:09 a.m. Your mother is extremely upset. You need to call her right away. I set the phone face down on my nightstand and just sat there in the silence of my little apartment. Then I saw a message from a number I didn't immediately recognize. Aunt Sarah, my mother's younger sister who had spoken to me so briefly at the reception. Aunt Sarah, 12:34 a.m. Rebecca, honey, I watched the live stream from Josh's phone. Sweetheart, I am so incredibly sorry. I had absolutely no idea Patricia and Natalie were capable of something this cruel. I'm genuinely ashamed of my own sister right now. Please know that you didn't do anything wrong. Not one thing. I'm here if you need to talk. Call me anytime. I read it once. Then twice. Then a third time, and tears started sliding down my face. It was the very first acknowledgement from anyone in my extended family that what happened to me was wrong. Not my fault. Not something I somehow provoked or deserved. Just wrong. The tears I'd held back through that entire nightmare finally came. Quiet tears, the kind you cry when you're relieved and heartbroken and grateful all at the same time. Someone had actually seen me. Really, truly seen what happened. And that single text message meant more to me than 32 years of desperately hoping my own mother would look at me with love. The screenshots arrived the next morning at 9:13 a.m. My best friend Rachel, who I'd known since nursing school, had texted me at 4 in the morning. Do not read anything until you call me first. Seriously, Becca. I have something you absolutely need to see before you look at anything else. By the time I woke up with Lucas happily watching cartoons in the living room, there were 19 images waiting in my messages from Rachel. She had prefaced them with a message that made my stomach drop. A mutual friend's cousin is dating one of your relatives. She was added to the family group chat by accident last month. Morgan, they planned this entire thing. Every word. I opened the first screenshot with shaking hands. It was a group chat I recognized immediately. The title read Heart Family, No Rebecca. A chat I had been removed from 8 months earlier after I'd asked why I wasn't invited to Christmas dinner. The messages were dated 3 weeks before the wedding. Natalie, I've been working on my speech for the reception. I'm going to call her out publicly in front of everyone. Make her finally see what a complete disappointment she's been her whole life. Mom, just don't go too far with it, sweetheart. We don't want to seem outright cruel to the guests. Natalie, Mom, she absolutely deserves this. She shows up to every family event with that kid like she's not ashamed of her pathetic life choices. Somebody needs to put her in her place once and for all. Mom, you're absolutely right, darling. She has always been an embarrassment to this family. Just make sure it's funny when you say it. People love a good roast at weddings. Dad, just don't mention me specifically in the speech. I don't want to be part of it. Natalie, trust me, she won't say anything back to defend herself. She never does. She's too weak. I stared at those words on the screen until they blurred together. They had planned it. Carefully orchestrated every moment. My mother had actively helped write the speech that called me damaged merchandise in front of 200 people. And my father, my quiet, passive father who never spoke up about anything, he had known exactly what was coming and said nothing. Did nothing. Just let it happen to his own daughter. Rachel's final message read, I'm so sorry you had to see this, Becca, but you needed to know the truth. It wasn't some spontaneous joke that went too far. It was a coordinated attack designed to destroy you. And they enjoyed planning it. I sat with those screenshots for a very long time. Lucas had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from the emotional chaos of the night before, his small chest rising and falling in the peaceful rhythm of childhood sleep. I watched him breathe and felt something settle inside me. Something clear and cold and absolutely final. For 32 years, I had been chasing something that didn't exist and never would. My mother's approval. My father's attention. My sister's respect and love. I had bent myself into impossible shapes trying to earn love that was never, ever going to come my way. I had accepted crumbs and told myself they were enough. I had let them treat me like a placeholder, a supporting character in my own life story. And for what? So they could plan my public humiliation as their gift to my sister? So they could laugh together while plotting how to destroy me? I opened a new document on my phone. I typed 2 simple words. No contact. That was it. No dramatic confrontation scene. No tearful phone call demanding explanations they'd never give honestly anyway. No desperate attempt to make them finally understand the depth of their betrayal. Just nothing. Silence. Absence. I would stop calling, stop showing up to family events where I was only invited so they'd have someone to ignore and belittle. Stop hoping that someday, somehow, they would look at me and see someone worth loving. Someone worth keeping. I wasn't going to announce my decision to them. Wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of another scene they could twist and spin into more evidence of my instability, my jealousy, my unworthiness. I would simply disappear from their lives the way they'd always wanted me to. Quietly. Completely. Permanently. My phone buzzed with yet another call from my mother. I declined it and blocked her number. Then Natalie's. Blocked. Then my father's. Blocked. I looked at Lucas, still sleeping so peacefully on our worn couch, and felt something unfamiliar loosen in my chest. Not anger anymore. Not grief. Relief. Pure, clean relief. We're going to be okay, baby, I whispered to his sleeping form. I promise you. We're going to be better than okay. But the story wasn't over. 3 days later, they showed up at my door. And what I said to them changed everything forever. Part 5 is where everything comes together. Where I finally tell you what happened after I walked away, and why sometimes the bravest thing you can ever do is choose yourself. They appeared 3 days later, right as I was coming home from a brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital. Lucas was chattering away happily about the dinosaur drawing he'd made at daycare when I spotted them standing on the steps of my apartment building like sentries. My mother wrapped in a cashmere coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My father in his usual golf clothes, both of them looking completely out of place in my neighborhood like they'd taken a wrong turn into the wrong part of town. Rebecca, my mother's voice could have frozen water. We need to have a serious conversation with you right now. Lucas's grip on my hand tightened instantly. Mama, why is Grandma here? He whispered, pressing closer to my leg. I don't know, sweetheart, I said softly. Go wait inside with Mrs. Patterson next door, okay? I'll be right there. I promise. Okay, but Mama, come quick. My elderly neighbor had already appeared in her doorway like she had radar for trouble, drawn by the obvious tension crackling in the hallway. She gave me a knowing, sympathetic look and held out her hand to Lucas. Come on, honey, I just finished baking fresh cookies. Once Lucas was safely inside and I heard Mrs. Patterson's door close, I turned to face my parents with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. You blocked our phone numbers, my mother said, and her voice was actually trembling with outrage like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. After what you did to your sister, after you deliberately destroyed her wedding, you blocked us. After what I did. You poisoned Cameron against Natalie somehow, my mother's voice rose sharply. You destroyed her wedding day. The venue is demanding full payment regardless. The caterers won't refund a single penny. Do you have any idea how much money your vindictive actions have cost this family? I laughed. I couldn't stop myself. A sharp, bitter sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside me, a sound that made my mother actually flinch backward. I didn't do anything, Mom. Nothing at all. Natalie stood up in front of 200 people and called me unwanted. You called me damaged merchandise. You called me used goods. Cameron made his own decision based entirely on what he witnessed with his own eyes. That's the truth. It was just a joke, Rebecca. My mother threw her hands up in exasperation like I was being deliberately difficult. A harmless family joke that you somehow twisted into this whole situation. A harmless joke. My voice dropped to a dangerous calm that surprised even me. You humiliated me in front of my 6-year-old son, Mom. Lucas asked me why everyone was laughing at his mommy. He cried himself to sleep that night. What part of that is harmless? For the very first time, something flickered in my mother's eyes. Something that almost looked like guilt or shame, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by her usual defensiveness. Natalie is absolutely devastated, my mother pressed on, and her voice softened into what she probably thought was maternal concern, manipulation disguised as caring. Cameron refuses to return any of her calls. The wedding photographer is refusing to release the photos. She's talking about needing therapy now, Rebecca. Therapy. My baby girl is falling apart. Then therapy might be exactly what she needs, I said evenly. How dare you speak about your sister that way? My mother's face flushed deep red with fury. Mom, I held up my hand firmly. Stop. I'm going to say this one time, just once, and then I want both of you to leave my home. She fell silent, and I watched shock flicker across her features like lightning. In 32 years of my life, I had never interrupted her. Never told her no. Never stood my ground. I didn't poison Cameron against Natalie. I barely spoke more than 10 words to him over 2 years. He made his own choice because he watched, really watched, how this family treats me. How you treat me like I'm worthless. And he decided he couldn't be part of it. That's not. I'm not finished talking, Mom. The words came out steady, unflinching, stronger than I'd ever heard my own voice. You planned that entire speech with Natalie. I've seen the screenshots from the family group chat. You helped her decide exactly what cruel words to say. You knew she was going to humiliate me publicly, deliberately, and you encouraged it. You coached her on how to make it funny. My mother went absolutely pale, all the color draining from her face. My father shifted uncomfortably beside her, suddenly fascinated by a scuff mark on the hallway floor like it was the most interesting thing he'd ever seen. Natalie is crying, I continued, and my voice stayed calm. Good. Maybe now she'll finally understand what it feels like to hurt this badly. I've been crying since I was 12 years old, Mom, trying desperately to figure out why my own mother looked at me like I was a disappointment she had to tolerate. Why I was never good enough no matter what I did. Morgan, that's not fair to say, my mother tried. You called me damaged merchandise, Mom. I said the words slowly, clearly, so she couldn't pretend not to hear. In front of my child. In front of 200 witnesses. And you're standing here on my doorstep asking me to apologize? Demanding that I fix this? The silence stretched between us like a canyon too wide to cross. I love you, I said quietly, and felt tears building behind my eyes. I have spent my entire life loving you and hoping, praying, begging the universe that you'd love me back the same way you love Natalie. But I can't do this anymore. I physically cannot keep doing this to myself. I won't raise Lucas in an environment where he learns that abuse is acceptable, that cruelty is normal, if it comes from family members. I stepped toward my apartment door, reaching for the handle. Please leave now. If you don't leave, I'll call building security. My mother's face cycled through what must have been a dozen different emotions in just seconds. Disbelief, rage, hurt, that calculating look I knew so well, before finally landing on her favorite weapon. Tears. Rebecca, her voice cracked with theatrical precision. You're going to regret this decision someday. When I'm gone, when you're standing at my funeral, you'll wish you had been a better daughter to me. The guilt trip. The classic Patricia Hart special move. A year ago, it would have worked perfectly. 6 months ago, it would have made me crumble and apologize for everything. Even last week, I might have hesitated, might have wavered. But that was before she laughed, actually laughed, at her own daughter being called worthless. Before she helped plan my destruction. Before I watched my son's innocent face crumple as his grandmother turned his mother into a punchline for entertainment. Maybe I will regret it, I said simply. Or maybe I'll look back someday and know with absolute certainty that I protected my child from the same damage you did to me. That I broke the cycle. The door to Mrs. Patterson's apartment cracked open. Lucas peeked out, chocolate cookie crumbs on his chin and concern in his eyes. Mama, are you coming inside? he asked in his small voice. I smiled at him. A real, genuine smile that came from somewhere deep and true and warm. Yes, baby. Just one more minute, okay? My mother lurched toward him suddenly, arms outstretched desperately. Lucas, sweetheart, come here and give Grandma a big hug right now. I stepped between them immediately. Not aggressively, not violently, but firmly and protectively. No, I said clearly. That single word hung in the air between us like a slap. He's my grandson. My mother protested. And he's my son, I replied steadily. And I decide who gets access to him. I decide who gets to be in his life. My father finally spoke, his voice rough with discomfort. Rebecca, your mother is very upset. Let's all just calm down here and. Goodbye, Dad, I said, cutting him off. I took Lucas's hand gently and guided him toward our apartment door. At the threshold, I turned back one final time. My mother was crying now. Real tears, or at least close enough to real. My father stood helplessly beside her, looking older than I'd ever seen him look. I'm not doing this to punish you, I said, and meant every word. I'm doing this because I finally understand that I deserve better than what you've given me. Then I closed the door and locked it. The video spread like wildfire, faster than my mother could possibly contain it. Within 1 week, it had made the complete rounds through our extended family network. Cousins, aunts, uncles, second cousins I'd never even met, all passing it along like evidence in some criminal trial. Aunt Sarah called me on a Tuesday evening while I was making dinner. Rebecca, honey, I just got off a phone call with your Uncle Robert out in Sacramento. He saw the live stream. He's furious. Well, he used words I absolutely will not repeat about your mother and Natalie. I didn't ask anyone to share it around, I said quietly, stirring pasta sauce. You didn't have to ask, she replied. Josh sent it to his mother, who sent it to her entire book club, who sent it to literally everyone else they know. Honey, you know exactly how family gossip works in this family. I did know. It was the exact same network that had spread rumors about my divorce years ago, about my failure to keep a husband, about my status as the family disappointment and black sheep. Now that same vicious network was working in my favor for once. Your mother tried calling me yesterday, Aunt Sarah continued. Wanted me to help her manage the narrative, spin the story somehow. I told her the narrative managed itself the moment she opened her cruel mouth in front of 200 witnesses and a camera. How's Natalie doing? I asked, surprised I could ask without feeling pain. Aunt Sarah hesitated. Not well at all, honey. Cameron officially ended everything. His entire family sent back the engagement gifts with a letter from their attorney. Something about irreconcilable differences in core values. Professional legal courtesy wrapped around devastating rejection. And my mother? Aunt Sarah sighed heavily. She's been calling absolutely everyone she knows, trying to explain that it was just a joke that went too far, that you're too sensitive. But people saw the video, Rebecca. They heard her exact words. No amount of spinning changes what they all witnessed with their own eyes and ears. Natalie tried her own damage control 2 weeks after the wedding. She posted this incredibly long statement on Facebook, carefully worded, professionally crafted, probably reviewed by 3 of her PR friends. I want to address the unfortunate misunderstanding at my wedding reception. What was intended as lighthearted family humor was taken completely out of context by people who don't understand our family dynamic. My sister Rebecca and I have always had a playful, teasing relationship, and I'm heartbroken that a private family moment was twisted into something malicious by outside parties with their own agendas. It went on for 7 paragraphs. Never once apologizing. Never once acknowledging what she'd actually said, the words she'd actually used. The comment section became an absolute battlefield. Natalie, I watched the video. There was nothing playful about calling your sister unwanted and having your mom call her damaged goods. How is that a misunderstanding? Girl, the video is still out there. We can all see and hear exactly what happened. Own your mistake. This is embarrassing for you. Rachel sent me dozens of screenshots of the meltdown, though I'd already muted absolutely everything related to my family online. She's getting destroyed in the comments, Rachel texted. Apparently her coworkers are asking questions. Someone said her boss called a special meeting about maintaining professional conduct outside the workplace. I didn't feel triumphant seeing all this. I didn't feel vindicated or victorious. Mostly, I just felt exhausted and sad. Cameron called me 4 weeks after the wedding that never happened. I almost didn't answer when my phone rang. The number wasn't saved, and I'd become extremely wary of unfamiliar numbers, but something made me pick up. Rebecca, it's Cameron Mitchell. I sat down slowly on my couch, pulling a blanket over my legs. Lucas was asleep in the next room and the apartment was quiet and peaceful. Cameron, hi, I said softly. I hope I'm not overstepping by calling you like this. I needed to apologize properly. You already apologized at the hotel, I reminded him. Not properly, not the way I should have. He exhaled and I could hear bone-deep exhaustion in his voice. I watched your family treat you like you were invisible for 2 full years, Rebecca. 2 years. And I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere, that Natalie would mature eventually, that families were just complicated sometimes. You didn't know how bad it really was, I said. I knew enough, his voice hardened with self-anger. I'm a family law attorney. I built my entire career on recognizing toxic family dynamics and protecting children from them. And I stood by silently and let it happen because I was in love with someone who absolutely didn't deserve that love. I didn't know what to say to that raw confession. That night at the reception, he continued, when I saw Lucas's face, God, Rebecca, that little boy watching his mother be destroyed for entertainment, laughing at her pain. I couldn't stay silent for one more second. You didn't just stay silent, I said. You ended your own wedding in front of 200 people. It was the right thing to do. The only thing. He paused. I meant what I said about legal help. If you ever need anything, assistance with custody issues, if your family tries to harass you legally, anything at all, I will help you. No strings attached. No charge ever. Why would you do that? I asked. Because your son deserves to have someone in his corner fighting for him, he said simply. And so do you. 6 months passed. It's strange how life rebuilds itself, how you heal, when you finally remove the people who kept tearing you down. I received a promotion at work, senior charge nurse in the department. My supervisor called me into her office on a random Tuesday afternoon and said, Rebecca, your patient satisfaction scores are the highest in the entire unit. You're calm under incredible pressure. You're compassionate with everyone. You're exactly the kind of leader we desperately need. Congratulations. I cried in the bathroom afterward. Happy tears, the kind that sneak up on you when you're finally starting to believe you might actually be worth something after all. Lucas started 1st grade in September. He made friends almost immediately. A talkative little boy named Oliver and a shy girl named Emma who shared his obsession with dinosaurs and space. His teacher sent home a note after the 1st month. Lucas is an absolute joy to have in class. He's kind to everyone, endlessly curious, and always willing to help other students. You should be very proud. My apartment was still small. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, radiators that clanked and hissed. But it was ours. I hung Lucas's artwork on every available wall. Crayon dinosaurs and finger-painted sunsets and a wobbly portrait labeled my mama in bright purple marker. It looked like home. It felt like home. I started therapy, once a week, 50 minutes of unpacking 32 years of being told I wasn't enough, wasn't worthy, wasn't lovable. Dr. Martinez, a kind woman with gentle eyes and infinite patience, helped me understand something crucial. You were the scapegoat in a family system that needed someone to blame for everything, she explained during our 4th session. Your worth was never, ever determined by their inability to see it. That was always their failure, not yours. I even started dating again. Casually, carefully, testing the waters. A pediatric nurse from the children's ward asked me to coffee one Saturday, then dinner the next week. Nothing serious yet, but the simple idea that someone might actually want to know me, the real me, felt absolutely revolutionary. For the first time in my entire life, I wasn't sitting around waiting for permission to be happy. I was just happy. Living my life. The contact attempts came in waves, like the tide. First, a birthday card for Lucas arrived 2 weeks late with no return address, though I recognized my mother's distinctive handwriting immediately. Inside was $100 bill and a note. To our precious grandson. We miss you terribly. I deposited the money into Lucas's college savings account and recycled the card without a second thought. Then a text from an unknown number. Natalie using someone else's phone to get around my block. Rebecca, we really need to talk. I've been doing a lot of thinking and soul-searching. Please call me. I didn't call. A few weeks later, a voicemail from my mother, her voice pitched in that particular tone of wounded victimhood she'd absolutely perfected over decades. Rebecca, this has gone on quite long enough now. Family is family, no matter what. You can't just cut us out of your life forever. I'm your mother. Don't I deserve a chance to explain my side? I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. The hardest attempt came from my father. He appeared at my workplace one afternoon, something he had never, ever done in the 9 years I'd been working as a nurse there. I found him waiting awkwardly in the lobby, looking uncomfortable and completely out of place among the worried families and beeping medical equipment. 5 minutes, he said when I approached him. Please, Rebecca. Just 5 minutes. We stepped outside into the cold November air. Your mother is really struggling with all this, he said, not meeting my eyes. She cries almost every day. Natalie barely leaves her bedroom. The family Thanksgiving was, he trailed off into silence. Was what, Dad? Empty, he finally said quietly. I waited, letting the silence stretch. I know what happened at the wedding wasn't right, the admission seemed to physically hurt him to say out loud. But Rebecca, your mother loves you. In her own way. She just doesn't know how to show it properly. Dad, I cut him off gently but very firmly. I spent 32 years of my life waiting for Mom to love me in a way that didn't hurt. That didn't damage me. I can't wait anymore. And I absolutely will not let Lucas grow up waiting and hurting the same way I did. He nodded slowly, something crumbling behind his eyes. I understand, he said so quietly I almost didn't hear. He turned to leave, then stopped. I should have protected you, he said without turning around. I'm sorry I didn't. Then he walked away. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to walk away from family for your own peace and sanity? Have you ever had to choose yourself over the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally? And if you've dealt with something similar, please share your story in the comments below. You're not alone in this. None of us are. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life, because your story matters too. Today, as I'm recording this, it's been 9 months since my sister's wedding that never happened. I'm sitting in our little apartment, Lucas sound asleep in the next room with his nightlight casting dinosaur shadows on the walls. Tomorrow is his 7th birthday. I've got a homemade cake in the refrigerator, vanilla with way too much frosting, exactly how he likes it. There's a secondhand bicycle waiting in my neighbor's storage closet, wrapped in a bow I tied 4 times to get it perfect. I got that promotion at work I'd been hoping for. I'm seeing someone now, Michael, the pediatric nurse who tells me I'm beautiful and says it in a way that makes me actually believe him for the first time ever. I have real friends now who actually show up when I need them. A therapist who's helping me unpack decades of damage and pain. An aunt who calls every single Sunday just to check in and chat. And I have my son. Last week, Lucas brought home an assignment from school. A family tree project. While most kids drew elaborate trees with grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins sprawling across the page in every direction, Lucas had drawn just 2 figures. A tall woman with long brown hair. A small boy beside her holding her hand tight. That's our family, Mama, he said proudly, beaming at me. Just us. We're perfect. I hung it on the refrigerator at exactly his eye level so he sees it every single day. My mother hasn't stopped trying to reach me through various means. Neither has Natalie. I get occasional messages forwarded through distant relatives, the rare handwritten letter that goes straight into the trash unread. And you know what? I don't hate them. That's the part that surprised me most. I spent so many years being angry about the favoritism, the cruelty, the thousand small cuts of growing up invisible in my own family. But somewhere along this journey, that anger faded and transformed into something much quieter. Not forgiveness, I'm not there yet and maybe never will be. Not reconciliation, that door is closed. Just peace. Acceptance. I chose myself. I chose my son. I chose our happiness and mental health. And that choice, as hard as it was to make, saved us both. Here's what I've learned through all of this pain. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It isn't cold-hearted. It isn't abandoning the people who hurt you. It's recognizing, finally and clearly, that you deserve better than what you've been given. You don't owe your loyalty to people who don't respect you as a human being. Not your mother. Not your father. Not your siblings. Not anyone. I used to genuinely believe that staying quiet made me strong, that absorbing every insult, every comparison, every public humiliation somehow proved my worth and value. Look how much I can take. Look how resilient I am. Look how I keep coming back. But silence born from fear isn't strength at all. Not when it costs you your self-respect and dignity. Not when it teaches your children that abuse is acceptable. Real strength is walking away from toxicity. Real strength is choosing yourself and your child. Real strength is looking your mother directly in the eye and saying calmly, clearly, I deserve better than this. And meaning it. Lucas will grow up knowing that his worth isn't determined by how much criticism he can endure silently. He'll learn that boundaries aren't walls meant to hurt people, they're doors you get to control. He'll understand that real love doesn't look like public mockery or strategic cruelty or jokes specifically designed to wound and destroy. That's my legacy. Not the Hart family name or reputation. Just a mother who chose her son and herself. Who broke the cycle. So that's my story. A wedding reception that became a funeral, not for a marriage, but for 32 years of trying desperately to earn love that was never coming. A 6-year-old boy who taught his mother that some people are worth fighting for and protecting, and some people aren't. A choice to walk away, not in defeat or weakness, but in victory and strength. Thank you for listening to every word of my story. If it resonated with you, if you've ever had to set boundaries with toxic people, if you've ever had to choose yourself over family expectations, if you've wondered if you were strong enough to walk away, please hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me your story. Where are you watching from? What time is it where you are? Have you ever had to walk away from family? You're not alone. I promise you that. None of us are alone in this struggle. We're all finding our way to peace, one brave choice at a time.